G'day, we're back with HSV H3 and as you can see we've got the welder out today, so we've got a bit of a project. And what's that project? Well, the wife's sick of trying to climb up into this car. It is pretty tall, I've got to admit. You've got to get your leg right up. If you're wearing a skirt, not so good. So we've made a step. The important thing with this step, from my point of view, one, it had to work for her. Two, had to look least ugly as possible. But the big thing with it is that it has to come off quickly when I want to off-road, because the way I off-road, and many of you have seen the other videos on the channel, that would last about 3 minutes. So this is how long it takes to remove this step. So we've got our trusty gun. I've always got one of these in the car, generally to take care of wheel nuts. I've used a nut the same size, so the same one I use on my wheels I can use here. And I've got one nut, undo that one nut, and we're off. So to put that back on, and we're done, ready to go. So I'll give you guys some ideas on what I've done and how we got to this, and hopefully it helps some of you out. So what did I use for this project? Well, we got this step, rather than having to fabricate something from scratch. This actually come with this mechanism here, which is for a pickup truck. Goes on the back, spring loaded. The original concept was to use this, but I just found I couldn't find a way to sit it where I wanted to under the sliders, and also to make it removable very quickly for when I want to off-road. So why do we do these projects? Well, when you've got a 7.5 inch lifted truck, and the wife comes wheeling with you, pretty soon she's sick of trying to climb in and out. So I promised her that I'd make a step for her, so at least in the beginning and the end of the day she can have a step. The step will be removed though when we're doing heavy off-road. So I ended up ditching the idea of the full spring mechanism, and I'm just going to use this step here. It's quite nice looking. So what we've done is, underneath the car, it measures out at about 265 millimeters between the two straps in between the bar work on the sliders. So the sliders have two tubes, and the bracing between those tubes has a couple of holes in it. So there happens to be two of them, 265 apart. These steps just happen to be around 275, 280. So basically we've got some flat plate, 5mm, 65 by 5mm flat. We've cut them to shape for depending on the angle and how far you want it to come down. So the idea is they will go onto the step there, welded on both sides. And we've already pre-drilled these as well. So for my truck, this happened to be 215 on the short side and 245 on the long side. Again, 65mm, 5mm thick. The holes are 30mm apart on centre. So I've cut those, prepared them ready to be welded on. I will have to grind the powder coat off this and give us a nice surface to weld to. Then what we're going to do is put some 14mm bolts through each of those, and I'm not going to do it now, but once I've got it in place on the car, because we need to bend these a little bit to allow for the extra width, so I'll bolt those on, and then once I'm happy with my position on the angle, we'll tighten those off, and I'll put the bend in it on the car to accommodate the width of the step. Now, the important thing with this is that typically you might put your bolts in from either end. In this case, they'll both be facing the same way. And the reason for that is I want them quick to remove. So that will go up and over into the position that we're going to have on the underside of the sliders. And it'll just be one bolt to lock that off. So the rest of the bolts will just act as pins. So that's pretty much what the project is. So through the magic of film, here's one we prepared earlier, just to give you an idea. I did buy 2 longer bolts for the bolts that were going to be the locking bolts, but got carried away and welded both the long ones onto the first step. So it's all right, the short ones will still work as it turns out. So basically, as you can see, this just goes up, slides across, locks in, and then I put one nut to hold that across. There is enough strength in that that you don't need to put a nut on the other side. You could, but you don't need to. Okay, so what do we need to get started? We need, of course, our step. You may have made this, or you may have used something existing like I have. And we've got this set up to the height that we want the step to be. So we've got the step there. Then we've got our 2 plates pre-drilled, 30mm apart. And the angle on the bottom, the measurements I'll give you later on. But the measurement could be anything, it just depends on what height your truck is. I think mine's sitting about 7.5 inches above stock, depending what you call stock, but say 23.5. I think it's just over 31 inches from the centre of the hub to the guard. So we need these. We need 4 bolts. The bolts are 14mm, or the hole size underneath is just above 14mm. So we need 4 bolts, 14mm. I think these are by about 30. You don't need much more than that. And you will need, eventually you'll only need 1 nut, but for assembly, for getting this together, we're going to need 2. The reason being is that we don't want to make this and then try and bolt it on. Because we do have to bend these arms out, because that step I'm using is just a fraction wider than the mounting points underneath. So we'll grab that mounting point, 1 bolt, 2 bolts, and line that up under there. That goes in there. And what I'm going to do is I'll just put 1 nut here, grab my little gun here, and that's nice and tight now. And then the same with the other side, but be careful that we're going the same direction, and this will become more apparent later, but the bolts are both travelling in the same direction, so we want to be on the same side of both plates underneath. So that's come from the back on that plate. So again, on this one here, let's move this out of the way. I'll come from that same side. And again, we put a nut on there. Yep. And I just eye it off. I just want to make sure that they're sitting in the same plane. So that's pretty good for me. So now you can notice this won't go in because, again, the size difference. So what we're going to do is just give that a hit. And get that in so it's nice and firm. I want that back bent down a little bit. So it's 5mm, so it's not, not too hard to move, but it is strong enough once you've got it all together. So that's all in position now. So the next thing we do is we'll tack weld that into place, get some good tacks on it, and okay, so ready to tack it up, and then slowly we'll weld it once we've got it in position. But where would we be without our welders? I've got a little SIG weld 250, so about as big as you can have on 240 volt, without going to three-phase. Done a lot of work over the years, but I'm not a professional welder, far from it. I'm completely self-taught, and sometimes I think I'm doing all right, and then I see a real welder's welds, and back to the drawing board. But for this, it's not quite structural, so it'll do. So just put some tacks on. Make sure we got it where I want it. I'll just throw a couple of tacks on the nuts because we don't want to have to be using spanners all the time. Okay, so pretty happy with the way that's tacked up. I'll probably put a few more welds on this, but I'll do it in situ. That way I'll be able to pull that off and on quite easily because everything is lined up perfectly within those holes. If we welded it up and then tried to do it, it might be difficult to get it on and off. Okay, so this is our step, all welded up, cooled off. Not painted yet, but we can pretty it up with a bit of paint. Better still, probably be good to have powder coated because it's going to cop a lot of wear getting in and out. And that's it. There's just that one nut is all you need. It's not going to rattle. So we've built all of that under tension so that it fits in there quite nicely when it pulls over. The 5mm is plenty strong. I can jump up and down on that all day long. It's not going anywhere. And now to get in and out, it's very simple. Especially if you're a short ass like I am. So that's the project, and we've made one for either side. I'm going to muck around later on. I might try and use a latch so that I don't need any tools at all to remove it. You could, I guess, drill through one of your pins and just use a split pin across there to hold it on. But I think you'd get a little bit of rattling and it might be annoying. So you want something that's going to pull it up nice and tight like that, so you're not getting any rattling on the rate. So I hope that was helpful for some of you. And stay tuned, and we'll send you some more tips as we do them. So thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully you've subscribed already, and just hit the bell so that you'll be notified of any upcoming videos with some tips on what we do to H3 HSV, as well as off-roading. And we're going to be this year doing some touring, so we'll be towing a van. We'll be seeing a fair bit of Australia all going well, you know, depending on COVID obviously. But yeah, we'll be doing a lot more travelling. So, you know, the hard rock crawling and everything that it was built for will still be happening, but you know, we'll have the touring side of it as well.